Good evening, everyone. Today we will be discussing tobacco use amongst teenagers. Why is tobacco use a public health issue? Tobacco use disproportionately affects those most in need, such as poor, the homeless, minorities, LGBTQ individuals, and those suffering from mental illness and substance use disorders. Tobacco use is the leading cause of preventable disease and death in the United States. Approximately 480,000 Americans die from smoking related issues each year. Smoking related diseases in the United States cost more than $300 billion each year. Tobacco addiction begins during youth and young adulthood. If current smoking rates continue, 5.6 million Americans less than 18 years old are projected to die prematurely from smoking related diseases. 90% of all smokers start before age 18. Factors associated with youth tobacco use: social and physical environments, biological and genetic factors, personal perceptions. Tobacco use among high school and middle school students. The figure to the left depicts high school students who currently use any tobacco product and combustible tobacco products, whereas the figure to the right depicts middle school students who currently use any tobacco products. Current use of tobacco products by ethnicity. The figure to the left depicts teenagers' current use of tobacco products by ethnicity, whereas the figure to the right depicts current adult smokers who use the brand methanol by ethnicity. African Americans and most Americans with lower socioeconomic status who use methanol cigarettes. African Americans who smoke methanol cigarettes have a more difficult time quitting. Each year, more than 72,000 African Americans are diagnosed with tobacco related diseases. Socioeconomic status influence on tobacco use. The figure to the left depicts use of cigarettes, cigars, and smokeless tobacco among adults with less than high school education compared with adults who are college graduates. Whereas the figure to the right depicts use of cigarettes, cigars, and smokeless tobacco among adults living below poverty level compared with adults living at or above poverty level.
Social determinants of health. Tobacco use is determined and influenced by several kinds of factors which lead to hazardous health outcomes. The first is individual factors, in which perception, that is positive attitude towards smoking, self-image, and peers' influence play important role. Studies have shown that tobacco use was found to be considerably higher among teenagers who have seen their family members and their best friends smoke. Teenagers who perform lower in school, have been behavioral issues, or drop out of school are more likely to use tobacco at an early age. Second is health and healthcare factors. Youth use of tobacco to cope up with psychological and behavioral problems such as anxiety, depression, and substance use disorder. One of eight childhood stressors, including verbal, physical, or sexual abuse, significantly increases both a youth's risk of smoking by age 14 and continued tobacco use as an adult. Third is economic factor. Advertising and media industry create great impact on youth mind. One study found that the teen exposed to the great amount of smoking in movies were 2.6 times more likely to start smoking themselves compared with teens who watched the least amount of smoking in movies. The fourth one is the community or the cultural factors. Factors such as traditional use of tobacco, acculturation, and the historic context of tobacco industry in various communities help to increase tobacco use among teenagers. Tobacco industries support community leaders and organizations and cultural events to promote their products. The final one is the social factors. Students with low level of overall social support engage in risky health behaviors, including substance use of cigarettes. Studies have shown that teenagers with proper social support about choosing healthier lifestyle can more easily quit tobacco than others. Health disparities related to tobacco use. Disparities in tobacco use remain evident across groups defined by race, ethnicity, education level, and socioeconomic status across regions of the country. Racial inequity among teenagers of African American, Hispanic, American Indian, Asian, LGBTQ community lead to increased prevalence of tobacco use. It is said that males are more prone to tobacco smoking than females, but no trustable data has shown that prove gender inequity among teenagers' tobacco use.
Tobacco use based on geographic regions. The figure to the left depicts current tobacco use in four major U.S. geographic regions, which are the Midwest, South, Northeast, and the West, whereas the figure to the right depicts current tobacco use by county population types, which consist of large metropolitan, small metropolitan, urban, and the rural areas.
Health literacy. Health literacy related to tobacco use among teenagers is the awareness on the effects of cigarette smoking on the biological, physical, and social aspect. Recent studies have done on high school students that shows the knowledge of students about tobacco addiction and health effects related to smoking show that the student who acknowledge that tobacco is addictive will less likely to be smoker continue compared to students who believe that tobacco is not addictive. Positive social bonding with family and schools, health enhancing behavior like engaging sports participation and encountering the negative role models of some professional athletes by providing explicit message about the health consequences of smokeless tobacco use, regular physical activity, and a healthy diet may increase adolescent valuation of an attachment to health and healthy body that might become promised by tobacco use. Structural bias. Structural bias can be seen in low income as well as in minority populations. More tobacco retailers near schools in low income areas than in the other areas. The most important thing in the structural bias is implicit bias. The implicit association test is used to assess children's implicit attitude towards smoking. Findings from the test show that smoking is more favorable for children who has family members who smoke than children with family members who do not smoke. Studies also shown explicit bias attitude towards social images. That is, most students actually believe that kids who smoke are cool. Public health efforts to address this issue. Examine an impact of personality factor and cognitive factor, coping resources, demographic factor on cigarette smoking behavior among the college students help to reduce tobacco use amongst teenagers. Implement age appropriate intervention programs in schools and colleges to prevent tobacco addiction. Entertainment and advertising industry could be then encouraged to avoid images of people smoking cigarettes in films and other media. Sponsorship and grants from tobacco industry for cultural and sports events should be discouraged. Implement tobacco 21 policy nationwide, that is increase the minimum age of tobacco sale to 21. States should increase tobacco taxes and equalize taxes on own tobacco products.
Current initiatives. Healthy People 2020 had three key points. Tobacco use prevalence reduces the tobacco use initiation among adults and adolescents. Health system changes increases successful cessation attempts by tobacco users. Social and environmental changes reduce the proportion of non-smokers exposed to secondhand smoke. The American Lung Association has the Not on Tobacco program, which is also known as the NOT program. Lastly, we have the Truth Initiative.